I wanted to introduce a new format to combat sports analysis. Not anything crazy, but in fact something simple. If you've ever done any deductive things like philosophy or computer science, but even if you haven't done any of those things, then you probably heard of if then. Simply put, if a certain condition is true, then you take a certain action. Since we talk about fights and science, I think it would be a great tool to help understand the science and develop a new perspective. Let's get straight into it. We're talking about Boots Ennis. Okay, let's talk about Boots Ennis for a little bit. Immediately he comes out setting things up. He starts off with a jab, then pause, and then another jab, and he's looking at the reaction of Lipinets. And then what is he gonna do? He's gonna feint a jab, really convincing feint. But what does he see? He sees that guard coming around the middle to defend the jab. Okay, so that information and that evidence is gonna help him come to the next conclusion. So he's thinking, if I look like I'm going to throw a jab, then his guard is going to go towards the middle, which we've seen before, and that means then I can throw a hook around the guard. Let's talk about this circumstance. Set of conditions. Boots is on his back foot, he's backing away, but he stops and he starts stepping over and stepping across, kind of like breaking his stance. And but most of all, he's kind of stationed there. He's not really moving anywhere, and he sees Lipinets approaching him, right? The idea is that if Lipinets comes forward with that relaxed guard, then Boots can catch him off guard, and that's what he does. Here's another setup with the jab, for a jab to the body. If his response to the jab is to bring his guard up in order to catch the jab or block the jab, then he can feint and bring it down low. Now this if then is really in a split second. So if he sees the punch coming, which he does, but he already started his offense, so he doesn't really have many options at this point. If he sees the punch coming, then he can turn with the punch and remove a lot of steam. In full speed, it looks like this. It looks like it lands super hard, but when you slow it down, he turns away from the shot. And here's another angle. He sees the shot. So look at where his head starts. And then when he sees the shot with his eyes, he's turning, he's turning, he's turning. And of course he takes some force, but he takes a lot of the force away. The question is, but why did he have to resort to that dangerous form of defense in the first place? That's really a last resort, not a first resort. So it really comes down to positioning, where he is in the ring. His back was already mostly against the ropes, and if he wanted to jump back, he'd be stuck against the ropes, and then he'd be in a horrible position. So what he has to do now is wait for an opportunity to escape. So if he's against the ropes, then he has to reposition himself. In this case, he patiently waits for a mid-range offense, right? So a lot of times he would look for opportunities for Lipinets to throw some mid-range shots like a hook or a kind of an overhand. And then what happens is, as soon as he sees that opportunity, he can pull out. And now he's repositioned. Now he's over here, and his back is no longer against the ropes. But one thing before we move on, look at the position Lipinets is in. He's overextended. That'll be important for later. Oftentimes I use the metaphor of a landmine, meaning if you step in a certain part of the range at certain times, then you will run into issues. In this case, Lipinets is stepping in with the jab, and he gets countered with a stiff jab from Jaron Ennis. So there's consequences for entering that territory. This isn't really an if-then moment, but if you don't watch Jaron Ennis, you definitely should. This dude, so he shoulder rolls the right hand, and then he looks for the uppercut. So he rotates his weight and repositions it to load up the uppercut off the shoulder roll. And as he uppercuts, at the simultaneous moment, he pulls his left foot around, and then he's turning his shoulder again, and then he's pulling his left foot all the way back, and now he's backpedaling out of range with his shoulder turn, avoiding the left overhand all at the same time. So he did all of that like within the span of like a second. A shoulder roll into an uppercut into a pivot backpedal. Crazy. All right, here's another simple one. If you stand in front of Boots with a high guard, then he will peel it down and blast you in the jaw. Now, in order to properly frame a if-then situation, you have to describe the situation. You have to describe the circumstance. So this circumstance is different from when his back is against the ropes, because when his back was against the ropes, he was focused on repositioning and defense. Now he's forcing Lipinets back, and he's looking for opportunities. As soon as he sees Lipinets in motion, he sees exactly what he wants. So the idea is that he's going to turn with this. If Lipinets throws a left overhand, he can lead with that shoulder, turn that shoulder, get underneath it, wait for him to overextend like how he did earlier, and then counter him. So the if is the type of shot Lipinets is throwing, and the then is the counter to that specific shot. Okay, I wanted this one to be short and sweet since I've been making so many longer videos, and that'll give me time to work on more diverse content. Be on the lookout for more fights in science, and yes, we will cover boots more in the future. Do not worry. Immortality Serum out.